Back, Big Nasty Brain, episode 2. Today I'm doing my favorite bass players. It's going to be a much bigger list. I'm a bass player by trade, so this list is focused more on the players that have influenced me. This is not about technical ability. These are about guys that I listened to growing up that made me think about the way I played, maybe changed the way I played, definitely had input to the way I played. It's a long list. And I also want to address the no clips in my videos. I'm not going to deal with copyright claims. So I'll put links down below. If you really want to listen to something, click on the link. Go give the artist a view. Yeah, just click on the links. These are just my thoughts on these players. I'd love to get your thoughts. I'm sure there's some people I did not include in my list. I maybe didn't listen to them as much, or they didn't influence me as much. So this is focused more on that list of players that really influenced my playing. Again, this is no in particular order until we get to the top 5. And then those players are really the ones that made a difference in the way I play, the way I think about how I play. Bonus points to the players that played a Rick. This is not a Rick. This is my little, it's called a shred neck. It's a little bass that takes up a lot less space in my RV. I do have a 4001 that my wife bought me for Christmas. Picture there, or there. So extra points for the Rick players. They definitely influenced my wanting to have a Rick and play a Rick. Anyhow, here's my list, starting with John Entwistle of The Who. Undeniably a great player. I came late to him, though. I didn't really listen to The Who a lot growing up. I was a Beatles head, and then I got into progressive stuff like Yes and Genesis, Pink Floyd, listened to a ton of Zappa. So I didn't listen to a lot of John Entwistle growing up. And then much later I discovered the album Who's Next. Terrific player, awesome tone. He played a Rick when he started. He made the roto sound round wounds huge, and that's the only string that I played for a long time. So lots of credit to him for that. Next up on my list is Sting. Great vocalist, great pop writer, but also a really good bass player, especially on his first few albums. If you listen to those first 3 Police records, some great playing, some really unique parts, great stamina as a player. Some of the parts that he played required a lot of stamina, and he definitely pulled it off. There's a lot of one-name bass players on my list here, and the next one up is no different. That's Flea. I didn't listen to a whole lot of Red Hot Chili Peppers, but one track that I am just astounded by when I listen to it and love his part is Alanis Morissette's You Ought to Know. Link to that below. Check out the bass part in that. It's great. Next up on my list is a bass player that had a huge influence on me in the 70s, Mel Shacker of Grand Funk Railroad. Again, I'll put some links to some of their stuff there. Great player, really filled out that 3-piece with Mark Farner and Don Brewer. He doesn't get mentioned a lot in these discussions, so I wanted to throw some credit his way. Next up on my list, another great 70s player, Tom Hamilton of Aerosmith. Just go back and listen to those first 3 records. I've brought them up in a previous video. Get Your Wings, Toys in the Attic, and Rocks. He wrote the opening for Sweet Emotion. There it is in the links below. Check it out. Tom Hamilton's a great player. Another 70s bass player on my list is Peter Cetera of Chicago. I know he made it kind of popular in the 80s with some of that pop stuff, like his duet with Amy Grant, etc. But back in the 70s, the guy was a killer bass player. Check out Chicago Transit Authority. I'm going to put a link below to a live performance of I'm a Man from early 70s. But yeah, he's a great bass player. Check out all of their earlier stuff. Another 70s bass player on my list, great singer, and unfortunately we lost him way too soon, Ben Orr of the Cars. His sensitivity and melodic playing, his bass parts on those first 2 Cars records, the Cars and Candio, great stuff. Next on my list is probably one of the most influential and important metal bassists out there, and that's Cliff Burton of Metallica. Again, a guy we lost way too soon. I would have loved to see where he went with his playing. But his stuff on those first few Metallica albums, especially on Master of Puppets, great tone, just great parts. Excellent player. Next on my list, guy you've probably never heard of, His name is Rick Anderson. He was in the Tubes. Had a really unique look. Check that out. But again, if you listen to their stuff, Completion Backwards Principle, or any of the stuff that in their A&M catalog, really good bass player, rock solid, interesting parts. I also got to meet him a number of times. He invited me backstage to some of their shows, got to meet all the band, and he's just a really nice guy and a great player. He died not too long ago too, which he will be sorely missed. The next guy on my list would probably be a lot higher on other players' lists, but he's one of those guys that was a very intimidating player, and as much as he influenced me, I could never approach his ability. And that's Jaco Pastorius, formerly of Weather Report, and of course he played with Joni Mitchell and some others. He had an incredible tone, really made the fretless sound great. Check out his solo album, good stuff. And another guy that we lost way too soon, had a really tragic, unfortunate death after a beating outside of a nightclub in Florida. His contribution to bass playing is immeasurable. Great player. Next on my list, and again, this is in terms of influence, because this guy, I listened to him so much. One of the few bands that I owned every record in their catalog, and that's John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin. Just listen to Ramble On. I put the link in the down below, and great bass player. 3-piece, he really filled things out. Also played keyboards, arranged a lot. His contribution to Zeppelin is often understated and misunderstood, but John Paul Jones, great player. Next on my list, guy who I saw live with Phil Keaggy not too long ago is Tony Levin. Of course, famous for playing with Peter Gabriel, King Crimson, so many others. Huge list, huge discography. But his tone and his ability, and especially his work on the Chapman stick, guy's a great bass player. Had a huge influence on me growing up. Next up on the list is a guy I came to late just because I'm an old dude. So I didn't discover him until I think it was 2000, 2001, something like that. And that's Rob DeLeo of Stone Temple Pilots. This guy is a great player, great songwriter. Love his parts. He's a very melodic player, some really innovative parts. And I love his attitude. I mean, check this guy out. You know, the whole almost Bill Wyman approach to the bass in terms of how he holds it. But he's a great, great player and love listening to him. STP is one of the few bands that I own their entire catalog as well. So Rob is huge. I included his brother in my list of guitar players in my previous video. STP is without a doubt my favorite grunge era band, and Rob is a huge part of that, of course. Next on my list, her contribution cannot be overstated, and that's Carol Kay. She was a member of the Wrecking Crew in LA back in the 60s and 70s, played in a lot of the Brian Wilson stuff and Glenn Campbell and so many other artists. Again, a huge discography, written tons of books, instructional books and things like that. And dig into what she's done and you'll discover she's an amazing bass player. Again, a huge contribution to the whole 60s, 70s pop scene. Next up on the list, another guy also had a huge contribution to 60s, 70s, even 80s, 90s rock stuff. Still playing, still contributing. Huge with like Phil Collins and James Taylor, and you've seen him all over the place. Lee Sklar, unique appearance with the long hair and the beard. You have seen this guy and heard him on more stuff than you can imagine. Consummate professional. He's the kind of guy to walk into the studio and he'll nail it on the first take. Huge influence, just because he's everywhere. So many songs you hear him on, and it's hard to deny the influence he's had just through pure osmosis of taking in all the stuff that he's played on. And the next guy on my list, similarly in the 60s, for Motown was James Jamerson. So many of these players will cite James as an influence. Just his walking parts, his rhythms, his choices as a player, hugely influential, and you've heard him over and over and over again. Another discography worth checking out. I'll link to his discography below so you can see everything that he's been on, and I'll find a killer track to add as well for you to check out. Next guy up on my list is Percy Jones of Brand X. I managed to get to see him live not too long ago, and that was a real thrill. Love the way he plays. If you've never had a chance to check out Moroccan Roll by Brand X, I highly recommend it. I'll throw a link to one of the tracks down below that kind of features Percy's playing. He's another reason I bought a fretless bass, he and Jocko both. Definitely check out Percy if you haven't heard him before. Now we're into my top 4, and these are the guys that have influenced me the most over the last 50 years of my life. This one more recently, since the the late 80s. I first heard him in 1989, and that's Doug Pinnick from King's X. This guy, I mean, have you ever seen anybody cooler? He plays a 12-string hammer. He doesn't pull it out as much anymore, but on those first few records, what a unique sound, that chorus, deep, growly bass. King's X has been credited by bands like Pearl Jam as being the godfathers of grunge. So if you haven't heard their first few records, check them out. I'll include a link below to one of his tracks so you can get to hear that growly bass part. He reps Schecter today and often plays just a 4-string on stage. He's got his own pedal out called from Tech 21 called the Doug Pinnick pedal, and it helps you replicate that growly 12-string sound that he would get. And he's a killer singer. But yeah, check out Doug. Next up on my list is Geddy Lee. I don't know how you can be a bass player and not be influenced by what he's done and what he's contributed to the instrument. So Geddy, definitely on my list of people that have influenced me. That stretch of albums from Hemispheres to Permanent Waves to Moving Pictures, huge influence on my playing. I'd only been playing a couple of years when I first heard him, so I immediately aspired to want to play like him. Another Rick guy, at least at the beginning. I know he doesn't play a Rick very often now, but kudos to Geddy. And then the next guy on my list, probably the biggest influence on me as a player in terms of how I wanted to sound, how I wanted to play, and why I wanted a Rick, and that's Chris Squire from Yes. Amazing bassist. If you haven't checked out Yes, you need to dig into it. I would start with their Fragile album. I just think it's the most accessible album they ever produced, but it's still got some hardcore prog on it, and his bass playing on that is incredible. And of course, everybody has heard that little clip in the beginning of Roundabout. So check out Chris Squire. And then my number 1 bass player, undeniably, I wanted to play bass because of him, and that's Paul McCartney. Here he is with his Rick. His impact on bass playing in the rock genre and pop genre is immeasurable. I know everybody knows that bass part in Come Together, and everybody will say, oh, what a great bass part. And it is a good bass part. Very innovative, very unique. He was never a guy to just hang out on the root, pedal on the root, and definitely moved around quite a bit, had some great walking bass lines, great melodic lines. But the 2 tracks that stand out to me that really blow my mind because of how early they were in the whole rock thing is Taxman and Rain. And I'll put links to both of those down below so you can check them out. But McCartney is a bass player. He's the reason I'm a bass player. He's the reason a lot of guys are bass players. A lot of people say, well, he's not that great a player. You just haven't listened to his catalog and haven't listened to what he's done or considered the time frame in which he did it. He was the first in a lot of these things as terms of what he's brought to the bass as an instrument and to pop music. So yeah, Paul is number 1 for me. Yeah, so let me know what you thought about this list. I'd love to hear who you would have put on the list.